Good evening, everyone. We are going to call our January 7th meeting to order. Tonight, we are going to begin with a moment of silence. So before we do that, please silence your devices to not impede the flow of business. Tonight's moment of silence will be in remembrance of former President Jimmy Carter and the North Carolinians that lost their lives during Hurricane Helene. So please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you so much. And if you're able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Smith, announcements?
Good evening, everybody. Just a few announcements for you this evening. As a reminder, all Town of Huntersville offices will be closed on Monday, January 20th in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I wanted to tell everybody about our Pottstown Preservation Plan kickoff. The Pottstown Community Preservation Plan goal is to identify what the community values and hopes to achieve for Pottstown. The Town of Huntersville has enlisted the consulting firm Neighborhood Concepts to assist with this project. As described by Neighboring Concepts, we will help communities design their own future. They will develop the plan of action to fulfill the community's intentions. So that kickoff meeting is on Wednesday, January 22nd from 6 to 8 p.m. at the David B. Waymer Recreation Center, which is at 14,008 Holbrooks Road. At this kickoff meeting, we'll discuss the future of the Pottstown community and how we can preserve what makes it special. This open meeting will provide an opportunity for everyone in the community to share their thoughts, priorities, and ideas for addressing challenges and embracing opportunities. And lastly, just a little tidbit here about Mecklenburg County's Low-Income Energy Assistance Program. This is one of several Mecklenburg County programs that help low-income households with their immediate energy needs, so no one has to choose between heating their homes or fulfilling other basic needs. To apply, at least one eligible U.S. citizen must live in the household, be responsible for the heating costs for the house, and income must be at or below 150% if you are 60 years of age or older, or 130% under 60 years old of the federal poverty limit. Applications are due by March 31st, and for more information, you can visit mecnc.gov/energy. And as a reminder of all the ways you can connect with us, visit us online, sign up for our newsletter, follow us on social, or download our app. Any questions? Yes.
Well, not a question, but a comment I wanted to raise. In honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, the town of Huntersville will host their inaugural first annual MLK Day celebration. It will be held at the David B. Waymer Complex on January 20th at 3:00 p.m. Thank you.
Board, any other additions? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we have a couple public comments. We will begin with Joe Sailors. You have 3 minutes.
I'm Joe Sailors, 9332 Westminster Drive. The reason I'm here is your item 8D on the docket, funding for right-of-way purchase to change or the plan for Beatties Ford Road, McCoy Road intersection. And I would just ask you to postpone that particular agenda item, not do away with it, but postpone it until our neighborhood, who was promised in the past that Overhill would remain open, that we get a better understanding of what's going to happen and why. It's just simply a request to postpone it tonight to a later date and not funding the purchase of any right-of-way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And next we have Frank Gemman. You have 3 minutes.
Frank Gammon, resident, Town of Huntersville. Madam Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. Roberts, thank you for what you do for the Town of Huntersville and giving me the opportunity to speak as a citizen. I have a written statement to read. I'm here to ask you to recommend denial of petition R-24-09, Town Center, general rezoning. The general rezoning of the parcels identified is not in the interest of the people of Huntersville. Before I proceed, let me be clear. I am not in any way opposed to the development of these properties. It was stated at the 4 November 24 public hearing by the Planning Department, and I quote, "Some people have asked me why not come in with individual conditional rezoning. These can be viewed in the development community as a barrier to entry. Removing that, i.e. barrier, by rezoning to the base town center district invites some potential projects that would not come before," end quote. This leads me to ask, what came first? The idea that a general rezoning to town center would attract projects, or projects that needed a general rezoning to allow them to be built by right? Why just these two parcels, four in the original petition? Why not a broader offering to offer a general town center rezoning to other property owners adjacent to and near town center? Why was this text amendment not sent to the Ordinance Advisory Board for review and recommendation before it went to the Planning Board? Again, I urge you to deny R-2409, Town Center General Rezoning, because it is not in the interest of the citizens of Huntersville, because the citizens of Huntersville will not have any voice in how Town Center is developed, their own voices, nor in the voices of their elected officials. This general rezoning establishes a slippery precedent for future town center development as town center expands. Thank you for what you do for the town of Huntersville and this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Jay Foley, you have 3 minutes.
I also want to thank everybody for giving me the opportunity to speak. So my comments is also about the same item, R-24-09. And I actually emailed the board just to express my enthusiasm for the proposed businesses of Pint and Page and Zeppelin Girls. And I completely appreciate some of the concerns about the sort of permissiveness of the general rezoning request. But I also want to express the concern that there is a much higher and potentially prohibitive cost associated, as I understand it, with that, with the conditional rezoning as a potential avenue to mitigate some of the risks. And so I want to encourage the board to move forward with this request in a way that is supportive of these innovative and small businesses and that doesn't burden them with this high cost of a conditional rezoning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Lee Hallman, and I see you have 3 minutes from Amber Kovacs. I see her here. So you have 6 minutes.
Lee Hallman, Huntersville. Happy New Year, by the way. First, let's clear up some information from the last meeting. The difference between general rezoning cost and conditional rezoning cost is not $30,000. The town's fee schedule we published to developers shows that difference to be $150. You understand that, of course, by now. I think $30,000 is for a set of very expensive plans, which neither of these properties are required to submit for conditional rezoning. A vote for general rezoning today will not alleviate one dime for these two property owners. In fact, per the state statute 160D 703A2, you can submit conditional rezoning with either a list of potential commercial uses to exclude, similar to what we've seen Mr. Palillo do on the Highway 73 project, or a site plan. The North Cross Business Park is one such project that did not have site plans when it gained its conditional approval. Yes, they eventually have to submit plans to the town staff, but the project has already been conditionally approved. You may want to test this with the staff, but just get ready for the dance. On page 61 of our 2040 community plan, the very first sentence under implementation that prefaces all our policies is, our communities do not change overnight. For instance, properties should not be preemptively upzoned based on the future land use map. That statement does not discern between the town preemptively upzoning and a developer, contrary to the staff's statement on 12/17. This is no literary interpretation. It simply says should not. There's not a separate chapter in our community plans for developers. It applies to everyone. For those watching at home, it means we need specifics. We need to see each project. It needs to have merit, and we can't tell if it does or not without seeing it. So how do we judge merit? That is answered in all the implementation policies in our 2040 community plan. And to say that general rezoning can circumvent those policies is ludicrous. The planning board voted 7-1 not to approve, and nothing significantly has changed, according to our town attorney. The one outlier stated that the reason for that vote was in support of property rights, which I thought odd at the time, having no context, like answering America to a political question. But it did make me think. Each property owner has rights. Those rights are governed and dictated by the zoning ordinances. All these properties are in NR. They have a set of rights that are compatible purposely to promote harmony and unity within a set of properties or zones. There is a dichotomy in all rights, the right to, allowances, and the right not to, restrictions. Currently, all neighbors in NR have a right to commercial uses, the right to sell books, food, beer, whatever. NR recognizes and respects the original residential component and puts restrictions on those commercial uses, two of which are goods and services beyond the physical structure and limits of hours of operation. You know, so commercial and residentials can exist in harmony. So now I have the right not to live next to a beer garden. I have the right not to live next to a business that is open at midnight. Those are my property rights. Upzoning to town center, general, strips away my rights and also takes away any opportunity I've had under the conditional rezoning to mitigate that. This action also has the potential to devalue my home depending on the unknown commercial use intended. None of it comes down to these two questions. The first one, why do you need to rezone? And the second, why by this method? The honest answer to these questions will reveal the true motivation, that of avoidance. Not avoidance of cost, but avoidance of conditions, which, as I've explained, strips me of my rights afforded me by neighborhood residential zoning. I know that sounds dramatic, right? But if your town allowed your neighbor to open a biker bar or a hookah lounge next to your house, would that still sound dramatic? I think most of you understand putting a bar next to a residence is a bad idea. But it seems that some are still valuing the uninformed emails from an angry mob incited by the hit job op-ed in our weekly advertising insert. We should support small businesses by showing them that conditional rezoning gets the support of the town and the staff more engaged with their plans. By granting general upzoning will not do what you think. It's the exact opposite. You will run these two opportunities away. And that LoopNet ad will write itself. 1 acre in downtown, zone TC general, no restrictions. Bye-bye small business.
Sir. Amy Hallman. You have additional minutes from Jamie Weidman, who I see, and Colby Hallman, who I also see. So you have 9 minutes.
Amy Hallman, Huntersville, North Carolina. Mom, Dad, Papa, Miss Lolly, Connell, Mary, and Colby, this is for you. This preemptive general TC upzoning in downtown is not in the public interest. Huntersville did not carefully plan for a vibrant downtown, spending $125,000 on a firm to study downtown, and how much more on an 18-month committee, and begin working towards that incrementally according to Downtown Master Plan, with a new brewery, restaurants, modern residential living, a new town hall, controlling development of the old Cashin's property and the Sliver, and then releasing Gilead Road widening project to now signal We don't care what they have to, anything happens at 115 or 117. It's all good forever. TC general rezoning here will significantly and negatively impact the residents' quality of life, and you'll be pushing us to live with it or to sell. When staff says these parcels are not big enough to do much with, despite downtown master plan saying otherwise, they are not considering their combined value, you know, if we have to sell. Because staff's reasoning is parking. Ask Mr. Richards when he was presenting their recommendation to remove the downtown parking requirements, which has been on the table since early 2023. By the way, when a shark goes beneath the surface, he's not really gone. Other petitioners waiting out on this outcome are lying in wait. While staff has shown you that all the soft commercial along Gilead Road, 115 and 117 are surrounded by residences, from 106 to 203 Gilead, down Hillcrest, all of the rentals of the North State Apartments, townhomes, and single-family homes. 121 is soft commercial, and even Ms. Wong plans to live upstairs. Residential here, save one vague application in the center. Granting a general upzoning opens the door, a precedent, to further general rezoning. This is the biggest concern of all. Combine parcels, build anything. Can I generally rezone 2 parcels on Dallas Street by 21 for listed purposes? One of the very sticking points with the original North State project was leaping from general and neighborhood residential to TC, and they did reduce the intensity as you approach residential homes. That is all we're asking for, conditions so residential and commercial can harmoniously exist. Going from NR to TC, you have skipped everything gradual, careful, and incremental in downtown development, effectively leaping from residential to max commercial. And because you've opened this door, you can't close it. I wish someone would honestly tell us how we got here. With or without the other 2 parcels, both properties can already operate within their NR zoning, but in 2 or 3 years, they haven't tried. Denying this petition tonight does not stop them from making improvements nor opening their businesses up tomorrow. Other things might, but it has no bearing on this decision. One is commercially upfitted, and the other, according to the planning director, is in disrepair. This property owner, who's lovely, by the way, plans to raise it and build new, live upstairs and operate the catering kitchen downstairs for pickup foods so one can order ahead. The other property has had multiple concepts in there for 3 years. Whether it's an all-out beer garden, a bookstore with spirits, a taco shop, whatever, the focus has always been serving alcohol in the backyard. The word bookstore is attractive, and people have glommed onto this romantic idea of a bookstore. Trust me, I did too when I first heard about it in 2023. I was even eager to help. He bought the residential property behind me because he thought he could extend the commercial property there to solve a parking issue. For a bookstore? So at some point in 22 or 23, the town staff said there was a parking issue. So now the 2's planned shared driveway is 30 feet from my childhood bedrooms. Is that where the food truck's gonna go to? Waking up and going to sleep to the smell of diesel permeating 117-year-old original windows? Just a month after completing a change of use for restaurant in May 24, petitioner completed a general rezoning application for permitted uses. After the now planning director said to him in June of 23 that a general zoning has no rules, the neighbor said in my presence, so you don't need a bookstore. 117 is next to and 30 feet from my 117-year-old residence, one that has been in my family for 105 years, one that has a current historic designation application, and several others could be. But both zoned and are acknowledging that these are residential structures can have commercial use while maintaining consideration of its residential placement. The very reason conditional rezoning is necessary. It's incremental. This summer, I had been anticipating my neighbor's conditional rezoning application, and I was coming to terms with reasonable conditions. I had said I wouldn't fight with such conditions. To be hit with a general rezoning was another gut punch. When the town's never had a general upzoning application from a citizen developer anywhere, much less in downtown, you really don't see it coming. Please learn from my mistake. On December 17th, Ms. Sloop said some people file general rezoning applications because they don't want conditions. Boy, ain't that the truth. They aren't asking for any, and they don't want any imposed. What we've learned through this is the filing for a general upzoning is a way to avoid the 2040 plan or the downtown master plan entirely. And as long as the application is vague, nothing specific can be considered? Surely that isn't what we're hearing. Imagine who else is hearing this. You can't be afraid of one developer but dip a toe in these unknown waters just assuming because you can't see them. Keep in mind that your planning board did vote 7-1 against approval. All the reasons still apply today. The fact that your decision is permanent, giving them new by rights for all time, and you can choose not to. If you vote yes, for whatever reason you think is good today, you're setting a dangerous precedent. If you want a bookstore or a catering business, this is not that vote. If you want to be a small business champion, this is not that vote. Everyone in this room wants to support small businesses in downtown. You help small businesses by working with them to navigate the ordinances, not by handing them the weapon to bludgeon them or our town. Our ordinances are not barriers. Do not be triggered by words small business. This is about process. A yes vote will make small business less attainable in our downtown. A yes vote will raise property values and rent in downtown to the point we owners can't not sell. And ultimately, a yes vote says you don't care what goes there, ever. That doesn't hurt only me, but the town, forever. When my mom was still here, a daycare went at 117 Gilead, and they could not have been more wonderful. They didn't even ask my mom to do anything, and they actually gifted her driveway gravel once. Even with after-school activities, the business of kids was over by 3 or 4. By the way, a daycare is by right in NR because it's a softer commercial business that transitions between residential and hardcore TC, which is where we're standing right now. Heck, even the North State apartments are conditional. In early 2000s, we had a biker bar and a motorcycle shop on this stretch of Gilead Road. The owner's own son was killed there during a New Year's Eve party around midnight. Easy Eddie's finally moved to its noisy establishment to what is now Magnolia Woods. We don't need a Boatyard Eats or a Saeed's and all their frustrations in our downtown next to and across from a residence nor attached to Greenfield Park, the oldest neighborhood in Huntersville, and also now attached to North State's nearly 200 brand new homes. Also recognize that these and our well-loved and supported downtown drinking establishments do not support property lines with residences. Please don't set this precedent. This is your legacy, and I am begging you on behalf of mine. These petitioners have a right to ask, but they don't have the right to have it. Please do not give unproven concepts, unlimited business hours, and other unlimited options that we may regret to highly visible property across the street from an elementary school in our downtown. Please don't set the precedent that a general upzoning can circumvent all of our community plans altogether. This isn't about the current property owners, but for the future property owners. There's no coming back from this, not for me, not for the downtown, and not for the town overall. Thank you very much for all this time.
Thank you. We have a number of comments for item 9B, and I just want to let the folks who are here to speak on that we have a request to defer that public hearing. And so you're welcome to stay and be observant of that deferral request, or you can go. I just don't want you to have to sit through the continuance of the meeting. It's up to you. So that hearing will be deferred to a date certain. Okay, so may I have a motion to adopt the agenda or any agenda changes?
I would like to make a motion that we adopt, that we adopt the agenda as well as accept any agenda changes.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. And may I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Motion to adopt the consent agenda.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. We're on to item 9A, conduct a public hearing on petition R24-10, Maracas Fire Training Facility.
Thank you and good evening. And please enter my staff report into the record for 2410 Maracas Fire Training Facility, conditional district rezoning, submitted by Central Piedmont Community College. Okay, a little overview of the request. This parcel is requested to, which is a vacant parcel currently, is requested to, which is currently split zoning campus institutional and neighborhood residential The proposal is to change that to special purpose conditional district for the use of a technical and vocational school, which is a fire training facility for Central Piedmont Community College. There's also another use, which is within our zoning ordinance for other environmentally sensitive uses not expressly permitted in SP or other districts. That is covered in Article 9.24. And the main reason for that environmental sensitive use is for the fire training for smoke. 9.24 does require a SUP approval for that to be approved for this rezoning as well. Just a little overview of where this is in relation to other places in town. You see the highlighted yellow parcel on Verhoff Drive. That is the proposed parcel for rezoning. It is at the corner of Statesville Avenue and Verhoff Drive, and it is on Old Verhoff Drive as well. There's a street that goes behind that parcel. So it is covered on streets on all sides. The HFFA parcel is up to the east. That is a workout facility with outdoor pool. There is a CPCC commercial drive training facility there to the south on the other side of Verhoff Drive. Then you've got vacant parcels to the west along Statesville Avenue. There's also other park facilities and some single-family residential to the north, and Central Piedmont Community College, Maracus campus, there down Verhoff Drive. This slide shows you a bird's eye view of the proposed site. You see highlighted in red, just gives you another angle look of what's around it today. As you see, it is a vacant site, has been cleared within the last 10 years, I believe. So a little more on the site plan that is attached to this rezoning as a conditional rezoning. The main use of the building is a classroom building you see there along Verhoff Drive. That would be for training of fire and emergency staff. There's 4 accessory buildings on this site. There in the middle you see is a fire training tower, as well as the burn building in the rear of that, and then 2 storage buildings along the parking lot area. All of the buildings that are proposed meet the height standards under Article 4, which is 45 feet. None of those go over that requirement. The ordinance does require an 80-foot vegetated buffer along the perimeter on all sides of this proposal, or in this zone on that parcel. There is a modification request to reduce that buffer on 3 of the 4 sides. They have proposed to keep the 80-foot buffer along Statesville Avenue with existing vegetation and then some supplemental vegetation. There is a request to reduce the buffer on 3 of the other sides, 40 feet on Verhoff Avenue. There's a 33-foot request along Old Verhoff to the north, or I guess that would be the northeast. And then on the north would be approximately 77 feet, so about a 3-foot reduction. So in order for them to fit this site and their minimum requirements for what they need to make this feasible for them, they would need to ask for some buffer reductions. Staff does have some concerns regarding the proposed 40-foot buffer along Verhoff Drive. That is a proposed 40-foot buffer. During our review, we did notice there are some conflicts in utilities, meaning stormwater easements, overhead power lines, and some drainage that goes into that buffer that would make vegetation difficult. So we want some more clarification and some design adjustments to make that buffer work. This is a snapshot of some of the modification requests. The one on the left is that buffer that we do have concerns with. Along that clear white area is some drainage patterns go through there from their storm detention. And then there are some stormwater easements along the area where the vegetation exists or where the vegetation is proposed. That would be difficult to plant there because of those conflicts. The modification you see on the right just shows a blown-up view of the other request for a 33 to 77-foot variable modification request. This slide shows you some of the massing with bird's eye view and street views of the proposal. The top left, you can see the educational building along the street, which would block and screen some of the interior of that proposal. And on the interior, you do see the fire training tower and the burn building to the rear. The second picture there on the right shows the view from Verhoff Drive, looking in where it shows some of that modification request. The site plan does show the buffer along the street and not against the proposed development. So that is a difference between the rendering and the site plan, and we do have some concerns there. And then the bottom two just show the educational building from Verhoff Drive and the screening that it does do to the internal piece of the development. Digging into the 2040 community plan, this proposal does meet some of the 2040 plan initiatives. EV 4.2 acts to support education and workforce training and support current efforts at CPCC. So it does say CPCC literally in the 2040 plan to support those efforts. It does, PS3 talks about coordinating with police and fire to ensure adequate resources and to provide public safety services. So this would support that. The proposal does not support, until the SUP is proven, we can get into that during that hearing, but protect and enhance unique character of Huntersville neighborhoods by using planning tools to safeguard from potentially negative effects of development and redevelopment. If the applicants were not able to provide or prove that some of the environmental potential hazards on site do not negatively affect adjacent property owners, then this proposal would not support that piece of community planning initiatives. But again, they would need to prove that in the SUP in order for the rezoning to be approved anyways. So moving towards staff recommendation and the consistency statement, staff can recommend the proposed rezoning with several conditions. One being that there is a condition on the plan that the controlled burns do not take place during ozone-sensitive days, according to the Department of Air Quality. That would comfort staff in believing that that smoke would not be negatively affecting adjacent properties because of that air quality day, where the ozone days do make the smoke lay under the clouds a little bit longer. That is something they would need to prove with the SUP as well. A more thorough buffer plan for the south boundary against Verhoff Drive should be proposed that does not conflict with any utilities or easements, ensure healthy plant buffer growth. The special use permit is obtained, and other minor staff comments would be revised. We believe by doing that, it would be consistent with EV4 and PS3. The planning board date is tentative for January 28th, and the town board final action would be February 18th, tentatively. The applicants are here. They have a presentation. I'm happy to answer questions now or after or during or whenever you guys need to.
Do you have any questions for staff before the applicant? You have a question for staff? Okay, go ahead.
Give me me 1 minute, bear with me, because of course, when I forgot what my question was. Hold that thought.
Okay, sure.
Do you want me to get the applicant up and then, okay. All right, we'll go ahead and have the applicant present.
Good evening. My name is Matt Butler. I'm a senior architect at Clark Nexen. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. This is just a brief presentation to provide a little bit of context, most of which Jesse's already provided, so I'll try and be brief here. What I'd like to do is just kind of establish at the beginning, this is an intent to, for the college to interact with the local fire department community to help train both existing firefighters who need regular certification to remain firefighters, and for those fire stations and the fire departments to remain compliant with regulations, as well as to train up-and-coming firefighters. So that's the purpose of this. That's why there's a classroom building and the training facilities as well. The project includes buildings and training grounds. It's an educational building that could be open to the public for small events, but it's mainly for the college itself to have students come in and learn about fire safety, fire training education, as well as for the firefighters themselves to kind of debrief on what they did that day. So the purpose of those three buildings are very distinct. We're currently designing the building, so what you've seen right now is very early on, but we did have to make an attempt to show you what we thought it could look like and should look like. You've seen already the site plan as to where we are here and where the site is. It's on the CPCC Maracus campus site. I won't belabor too much of this that you've seen already. There's some topography we're dealing with. You've seen the site plan already. I've just highlighted them in orange to make them a little bit more visible. There are a couple, people may not know what a burn building is, in case you don't, or a training tower for that matter. This is what's called a Class A burn building. It will be similar in size, probably maybe between the two images you're seeing on the left versus the right. It is mainly of a concrete block. What you do is it represents a variety of examples that a firefighter might train inside. So it's kind of a flexible space, and it's meant to simulate a burn event. The fuel that would be used in a Class A burn building is, it's not a petroleum or rubber or anything kind of base. It's all just wood pallets and straw. The entire building is not burned all at once. It'd be a room at a time, maybe 1 or 2 rooms at a time. So the image you're seeing on the top left is when it's not being burned, and the image you're seeing on the bottom left is when it is. I do have a video in this presentation, if anyone were interested to see it, of the bottom left situation. And there are opportunities to kind of use a different color of block. That's just an example on the right of another way that these things could be used, could be built. What we call the cold training tower was the other building in the middle of the loop on the site. It is not burned. It is just used for training purposes, so you can arrange a variety of rescue or fire scenarios in there where there's no actual fire, but you train inside there running hoses and how you actually kind of do the logistics of treating a fire, just everything without the fire. You can rappel off the side and so forth. So that's what the cold tower is. CPCC, you probably know it well, but they have a vernacular in the nearby area of a lot of brick, some metal, some glass, and the renderings that we showed are in keeping with that. This is the same image that Jesse showed. And I'll point out a couple of the easier things to mention. He mentioned some of the buffer concerns, which are on Verhoff, the street that's on your right side. We are currently in talks with Duke Energy and Electricities and Energy United, all of which have power on this site, running through this site and around this site. The power line in question along Verhoff is between Electricities and Duke Energy. We have a tentative agreement with them to relocate that power line across the street to the CDL lot, which is also owned by Central Piedmont. So the buffer concerns are a little bit easier in that regard, where we're not limited to where we can and can't plant. We can use a little bit more of that land, and the changes that we're currently making after the latest round of rezoning comments are more in line with what this rendering shows, where the plantings would be possibly closer to the inner side of the site. But again, those drainage issues that Jesse alluded to, we are already in the process of dealing with that and can come up with some pretty straightforward civil solutions to address those drainage concerns. This is just another view. It's the same view that Jesse showed you. I thought if there was a question, I could have it ready to respond to. These are some additional views that we've created that are more experiential. From the bottom of the hill, you can see there's quite a lot of topography. So on your left, at this intersection on your left is 21 Statesville Avenue, and your right is Verhoff going up the hill. Existing vegetation is the tall stuff on the left. These are all just representative of what our software had for the type of plants that we anticipate in trees. Again, as you move up the site, heavy planting and the classroom building is used on Verhoff, which is the most public street, to shield the majority of what you'd be seeing, or not seeing rather, on the inside of the site. Straight on, again, the same view that Jesse showed you. This is our classroom building proposal. From that main corner, and I'm just going to move around here. From the main entrance, as it's viewed from the northeast, the main entrance as you would be accessing the site. Again, heavy vegetation all around. There would actually be more vegetation than this view represents, because there's going to be a change that's more up to date on the site plan than this rendering. This is the view from the daycare side. And again, just some adjacent properties, the idea of being a good neighbor. I'll speak to that in just a little bit further as to what that can imply. We are aware of the wind patterns of this site. They're a little bit they're inconsistent. I mean, they're coming from multiple directions, so there's not one conclusion you can draw. One thing I did want to point out is one of the concerns about the rezoning was that there be a statement in this conditional rezoning that we restrict burning to days that are compliant within the EPA standards. That is a given, and that's by law the only way that they can conduct burnings. So what they call the red days, which are almost assuredly June, July, and August to be red, will not witness any burnings on those days, which are the summer months. So the days from September through May are anticipated to be the only burning months that you should experience. And that will be by EPA regulation, which regulates the ability for these fire departments to burn on this site, and any site rather. So this is the windrows that you'd see on the site. A little bit about how it will be used. It will be shared between a variety of fire departments, all of which we've met with and have shown great interest and support in. The fire department community is incredibly excited about this project. It being shared, the number of burn days are estimated to be between 70 and 75 per year, not within the months of June, July, and August that I mentioned earlier, mostly because of those red days. They are highly administered and regulated. A lot of paperwork goes into allowing a burn day to even happen. They're administered by Central Piedmont and surrounding fire departments. Just to let everyone know about the schedule, they are slated to be daytime and nighttime. Firefighters need training in both scenarios. That's just a practical way of providing the most realistic training, and weekdays and weekends. There will be an effort to make social media notifications by the college to notify surrounding residents, and that has been talked about and is being worked on by the college at this time. And garnering good relationships with the neighbors. Most of the surrounding property is, a lot of the neighbors are Central Piedmont property, but getting to know those neighbors is a big step forward and maintaining good relations for what we're doing on this site. So that was the main thing I wanted to add. There was a video on here, but if I don't think that probably transferred Okay. Well, you saw the picture, which was very representative of what the burn might look like, but any questions? I guess I or Jesse would be happy to answer.
Mayor Pro Tem Hunt?
Thanks for touching on how you would communicate with the neighbors, but I'm hoping you can elaborate a little bit more. So like if I lived in Magnolia Walk, which is the neighborhood right over there, I might be concerned if I see some smoke. So how will you communicate with residents about that?
Would it be okay if I deferred communication questions to CPCC? I don't know that there's necessarily a protocol that's been established that I, as the architect, can attest to at this time. Is it something that we could get back to you with?
Of course, yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Bergman?
Yeah, and my iPad's working now. So yeah, I just have one question for staff and then a few for the applicant. I just want to make sure I was saying the correct utility. I noticed on one of the plans that it mentions like a possibly, it's worded as a possibly abandoned electrical line. I was curious about
And that's
that.
one of the questions we have for the applicant. If the utility line, the overhead line, is actually going to be abandoned, we would want that to be stated in the plan, that it is planned to be abandoned. And the reason for that is with that overhead power line, there's certain vegetation that can't grow up to that height, which is needed for that buffering effect in the intent. So it's not necessarily 100% needed, depending on where that line is on the plan, but we want it to be shown so we can be sure where it actually is, and if it's going to go away or stay.
Thanks. Is that something you think we'll get more, you'll have more information on by the time it comes back to us?
We're currently in talks with each of the 3 utilities about relocating them. It's obviously kind of a complicated matter with all 3 of them claiming a little bit of ownership on this site. But Duke and I believe it's Electricities on the Long Verhoff Road, we've met with them on site and had several calls about shifting it across Verhoff and then handling the Energy United line that goes straight through the site between CPCC and Energy United. Those talks are already started as well. Several different conversations are being had about them with the different utilities and the owner.
Good luck with that. And so another question that I had, so I looked a bit into fire training facilities in other states, and one thing that I came across that some of them do is have kind of a water treatment system on site that they can recycle and reuse the water. Is there anything like that planned for this facility?
I don't think it's the recycling of the water that we're looking to do. It would be treated and stored on site and filtered back into the land properly. But as far as the recycling, our civil engineer is here with us as well for any technical questions. No, the intent is not yet to do that.
Okay, so no ability to reuse the water. That's kind of what it's sounding like.
It's water that's been used to put out fire, and it's runoff on the concrete, and it's stored and treated to a level that you can put back into the storm system. Reusing it, you mean for firefighting purposes?
Yeah. Yeah, so I was reading, I don't remember the name of it, but there's one in Texas, and there was one somewhere else where they actually came up with a method, kind of to be a little more environmentally friendly, to be able to reuse, so you're not using as much water each year as if it was
It's possible. I believe it was discussed early on in the project. This project is at the top of its budget to try and provide all that's needed for the training. So that was one of the things that we decided not to move forward with.
Okay. And then just one last question. During the trainings, is a mixture of water and foam going to be used? Because I know some firefighters use like this foam product.
If it is, it has never been mentioned to us by the fire department community, which we've met with. It's really just been a water. There could be a possibility of foam. Oh, I thought I saw you shaking your head, yes. That would be a surprise to me. So no, as far as we know, there's no intent to use a foam product.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you for going over the schedule and the number of days and everything like that's really helpful. I was wondering if you could talk about how long typically the fires do burn when they are happening?
They happen within a small window of time. So it would be that you would block out a day, and the teams would come in on their fire truck or maybe in their individual vehicles, park and come on. They'd spend the day there, but the actual burning time itself is ideally as long as it would take a firefighter to put out a fire in a room. I'm thinking 15 minutes. It could be a little bit longer, depending on what the training is, or a little bit shorter, depending on what the training is. It depends on what room it's in as well. If it's one of the larger rooms and they're testing a larger fire scenario, and they're using a certain approach with a smaller crew or a larger crew, it kind of depends. So the answer is kind of, there is a range. It could be as short as a few minutes to 15 to 20 is my best guess, but it all depends on what the instructors are trying to teach.
Okay, that's helpful. So it's not like people are going to be woken up in the middle of the night because it's a 3-hour fire next door or something like that.
Now, that would be pretty bad training if they.
Yeah. Okay. And what do we know about the impact on the air quality? Like, how long will it impact? Will the neighbors smell it? Like, what, can you go into a little bit of that?
So this is something that we've given a lot of thought to how we would answer a question like this. The fuel that's being used to burn is the same that is essentially in your fireplace, a wood-burning fireplace in your home. It's just the size of the building, and however, if there's one room that's on fire at the time, that's how large the fire would be, but of the same exact fuel burning it. We are, I think, between 500 and 750 feet away from the nearest neighbor as the crow flies. And based on the studies that we've given on the prevailing wind patterns, it was estimated that about 50% of the winds that exist year-round travel about less than 2 miles an hour. So if you do the math, the small amount of smoke that one room would produce would take about 3 minutes to get to that house, or to that building next door. And by that point, I don't unfortunately have any sort of hard data to prove how it happened, how it dissipates itself, but 3 minutes for that little amount of smoke to get over there, I'd imagine there'd be quite a lot of dissipation before anyone would ever experience it. And I believe the nearby neighborhood is well over 1,000, 1,200 feet away, so it'd be double that time for that.
Okay. Do you know anything about the maintenance to one of those burn buildings? Like, will it always look like it's been burnt?
It will look charred, and it's usually around the windows. As you can imagine, it would just kind of come out the window and go up, so a lot of them have kind of just the soot on the outside of it. And we've talked about using a different color block or something to make it prettier, but really it comes down to the owner's maintenance preference. We recommend it be cleaned regularly, and how often is really a matter of preference. It could be every year or every 2 years. Some do not get cleaned by their owners. Around, you've probably seen, or if you've seen them.
Do it, right?
That's right.
They love that stuff.
You shoot high-pressured water on it. We do recommend it be cleaned, and there are procedures to clean those to get them to look almost back to new, but it's just, it's a matter of preference on the owner. It's hard for me to comment on exactly how, but we recommend between a year and every 2 years.
Okay.
Say something to that effect. Part of the intent of the buffer too is to buffer those internal buildings. So the goal for some of those reductions is to add more evergreen, and for that internal part of the site to be blocked, where the educational building on the front would be the visible part. Obviously, the tower would probably be seen at certain angles, but along Old Veerhoff and Statesville Road, most of that buffer is to be intact, 80 feet. There's some that are smaller, but the added evergreen should block a lot of that visibility to the burn building, at least.
Okay.
And you could maybe speak to that as well.
and maybe while I'm talking, I can go back, but the small gray building in the top right that you can see in this image is the burn building. It's the smaller of the two gray buildings. It was intentionally put in this location to be one as downhill as we can make it on this hilly site. So it slopes down towards 21 as you're looking into the rendering. And to place it behind, like Jesse mentioned, as much vegetation as we could, and behind the cold tower, which won't be burnt, and behind the classroom building, which of course will never be burnt. So the placement of the burn building was the first thing we started with to make it as hidden as possible, as reasonably possible, deep into the site. So in addition to, like what Jesse said, what's going to shield, we went to great lengths to make sure that that building was the most thoughtfully sited of all the 5 buildings that you see on the site to reduce visibility and the unsightliness of what it is.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering if you could email us that video. I'd love to see that.
I'd be happy to.
And then my last question, you mentioned something about being open to the public for small events. I was curious what that really meant.
We mentioned that to the client. It's not necessarily designed for that, but this is a good enough rendering to show it. There was an intent at one point that you could come in to the parking lot and use the classroom building without entering the security of the site. The site will be gated off. The training portion of the site will be gated off. But the rest of it will be open as if it were a regular CPCC classroom. And in that regard, it could be used as much as you may see CPCC use its other facilities that are similar for any kind of meeting like that.
I was imagining like maybe, when you're having a burn thing, you invite like a school to watch or something, like the daycare next door, the kids can come and watch them or something.
Be at a safe
I
distance,
don't know if
but
that's
that'd be at their
possible.
discretion too if they wanted to.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah.
Questions, board? I was thinking about the volume of smoke and thinking about we regularly have controlled burns of vegetation throughout the year to kind of, reduce the undergrowth in parks in different areas. Thinking of that volume of smoke, would this be less or more in relation to that volume of smoke?
I guess it's hard to know how big your control burn.
They're pretty big.
Imagine a room the size of your living room with a fire chamber, without knowing really, maybe a few feet by a few feet large, and it's lit up. And then they come into that room in that controlled burn, and so it's in that one room. So the fire isn't really much to look at. In fact, the video, you can't even see the fire. You're just seeing some smoke coming out, and it dissipates pretty quickly. It's clear smoke, it's not black smoke. Maybe one way to compare it to, you said an outdoor fire like that, is a lot more stuff gets burnt in that. It could be anything you throw onto it, organic matter, that could cause more of a black smoke, and this would be much more of a clean burning, just pine wood and straw.
Thank you, appreciate that. Is there anyone from the planning board here that has any questions? Okay, thank you. Board, any other questions? All right, thank you so much. We're on to item 9B, conduct a public hearing on petition R24-07. Mr. Richards. not
Yes,
Mr. Freed.
good evening. The applicant was not able to complete their TIA in time, and they were requesting a deferral to the March 4th, 2025 Town Board meeting located here at 6:30 or 6 p.m.
Have a motion to defer.
I make a motion to defer the public hearing for petition R24-07 to March 4th, 2025 at Huntersville Town Hall at 6 p.m.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 10A, consider a decision on petition R24-09, Town Center General Rezoning. Mr. Richards.
Hi, good evening. Brian Richards for the staff. This is the general rezoning 2409 for Town Center. At this time, I'd like to submit my staff report to the record. Just a quick recap, when originally submitted, there were 4 parcels as part of this. I'll just give it just a moment, let the folks excuse themselves. Okay. As this rezoning has progressed, 2 of the applicants have withdrawn, so we have the 2 remaining parcels here. So we're asking for, they are requesting a rezoning from neighborhood residential to town center general. They're just over 1 acre in size. As we can see, here's the corridor along Gilead Road. We've had this up for all the hearings so far. You can see a number of the homes have converted over from residential properties to various non-residential uses, mainly offices and mixed use. The 2040 community plan does support the the general rezoning. Again, more background data that we've expressed in the past. Wanted to present a chart showing uses that are allowed in both districts. You can see anything that's highlighted in green on the left is allowed in both the neighborhood residential and the town center district. On the right-hand side of this list, you see items that are listed mainly in yellow. Those are items that are only allowed in town center. If things are not highlighted, that means they're allowed in both. Just something to point out, as these properties are on the south side of Gilead Road, they are in the protected area watershed, protected area 2, so that limits the impervious built upon area to 70%. Basically, if you had 100 acres, you can build on 70 of those 100 acres. In this case, it's 1 acre, so you can build on 7/10 of an acre. Again, it's been pointed out by staff in the past, there was a text amendment several years ago to clarify what can occur on a commercial use building in a detached style in the neighborhood residential district. It does limit the number of hours from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., and activities can only occur inside the building and on the front porch, not out in the backyard or out in the front yard or anything. As pointed out before, Planning Department is in favor of this general rezoning. The Planning Board did recommend a denial when all 4 participants were in there. As we explained previously, the removal of those does not constitute a change to go back to have another public hearing or another Planning Board recommendation. Some clarification too about what's required in a conditional rezoning versus a general rezoning. In a general rezoning, it's just an application and a fee. Here's a list of uses. All 14 of those things are required by our ordinance for a conditional rezoning. That's where these costs come in. You have to hire paid professionals, typically engineers, surveyors, occasionally attorneys, so on and so forth, architects. Anybody can ask for removal of these things. They don't have to submit them. Again, then you weigh this on the merits of the project. And we'll just leave that there. Staff can also request elevations, scales, height structures, all kinds of modeling, those types of things. Have you seen previously at the CPC thing? They had their 3D renderings. We can request all of those as part of a conditional rezoning. General rezoning, we don't have that ability. Again, we recommend approval of this, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. Both applicants are here as well to answer any questions of them.
Commissioner Rivers?
This is a staff question. In regards to the noise, noise has been a concern, noise ordinances. Are they enforced the same with the general as in a?
Absolutely. All properties in the town of Huntersville are subject to the town's noise ordinance, and the police department does enforce that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Dumas?
If you want to stop me at any time and go on to somebody else, just let me know. I have a book. So when was the last time we used general rezoning in our downtown?
In downtown, I'm not aware. I went back over the last 10 years and just did a quick through for the 10 before that, and did not find a general rezoning for town center. Just for record, in the last 10 years, we've performed about 120 rezonings in the town of Huntersville. 5 of those were general rezonings. One was for soil supply. That was basically just to correct some misactions that were going out there for a number of years, and we had to get that into compliance. Rezoning 1611 was actually withdrawn. It was for a retirement facility on Highway 73. One was on Beatty's Ford Road, and that was actually to remove conditions that were placed on the property for a subdivision that never came to fruition. Recently, we just approved down towards Verhoff Drive a general rezoning for a gentleman to from corporate business to neighborhood residential for a home to be built. and of course, this rezone that we're here for tonight. So just 5 over the last 10 years.
So you mentioned a little bit about what conditional rezoning versus general rezoning, what we require versus not. If you, perfect. So the 30,000, it was mentioned in our last meeting that a general rezoning could cost up to $30,000.
Probably starting at $30,000 and going up.
30,000, okay. So that's paying for the things that are being requested here.
Correct. So those are all paid for professional services, again, engineers, architects, surveyors, so on and so forth.
We do say, right, on this, and you mentioned that we have the ability of waiving several of these items.
Correct,
And
yeah.
they don't have to be done by consultants. They can, like, we've seen other proposals, other applications with hand drawings and,
Correct? Correct.
so we really do take in the project itself and the lot size potentially and decide based on that? How do we make those decisions on whether or not?
We don't make those decisions, so if any of these 14 things want to be waived, the applicant would have to ask for that modification, or say, I choose not to present the tree survey. And then we would not be able to analyze that as part of our,
And then it comes to us and we would decide whether or not we want that and if it would weigh in our decision? Okay. Okay. What's the difference in the town fee between the two?
I believe the general is $300, and then for a conditional, the zoning review starts at $450, and then there would be subsequent engineering fees that could vary depending on the size of the project.
If it looks to me like several of the itemized list here would be something that somebody would need for a successful business anyway?
Correct. A lot of these items could be reused as part of a construction plan or commercial plan or preliminary plan document.
Okay. I have concerns. If this project gets approved, I feel like it does create a precedence set for all future rezonings in our downtown. And there were 2 other lots included in this originally, larger lots across the street. And they've removed themselves, as you mentioned. If we approve this general rezoning, wouldn't it make it easier for those lots to come back to us with a general rezone request?
Do you want me to speak to that, or do you want to?
So just as a point of clarification, each individual legislative decision, which a rezoning or a request to rezone property is a legislative decision, it does not set a legal precedent, meaning it does not establish a requirement to then act in the same manner as far as either approving or denying a request in the future. So I just wanted to make that point of clarification.
Okay, thank you. I mentioned this in the December 17th meeting. I'm going to repeat myself, but I am fully in favor of both of these businesses. I love the ideas behind them. When I heard about them, I was super excited. I truly believe I'm one of Dumpling Girl's biggest fans. We're not allowed to really consider the proposed business ideas because they're not really proposed. The application doesn't come with these business plans. So for me, it's about the type of rezoning and what types of businesses could be approved in our downtown. And with this general rezoning, what you mentioned, the types of businesses that could be there. I'm seeing family care home, nightclubs, car, motorcycle sales, gas stations, service repair centers. To be clear, I'm not opposed to any of those, but I would personally not envision them in our future downtown. The average business cycle is 8 years. So even if these businesses are super successful, and I should also say 5 years for bars. Let's say they're both successful, and in 15 years, they want to retire and do something new. What's to prevent a nightclub or car, motor sales, a gas station from opening there?
May I speak to that?
Yeah.
Staff has actually begun a text amendment to remove the automobile sales as well as the gas station. As you know, we've purchased Cashions, so there's no longer a need to have these in there. These uses were in there due to the legacy of those. They were already existing businesses when the zoning ordinance was created. Many, many years ago, where now Discovery Place Kids sits, and just to the south of the sliver, there was an automobile dealership there that's no longer there, obviously. So we are working on a text amendment to remove automobile and motorcycle sales, as well as the gas station, since there's no longer a Cashins. So that will be coming up over the next couple months. Interesting enough, nightclubs, music bars, those types of things. If you read the definition of a nightclub, that's 760 right now. So if we remove that, 760 would be allowed to exist, but it wouldn't be in compliance. Correct. So we are going to look at changing the definition, so it will be that will be modified as well as part of that text amendment request from the staff.
Okay. Okay, I guess my last comment or question is really, by approving this, we're not guaranteed either one of these businesses. They can do anything on this list.
Everything on that right side, correct.
And every business in the future, in those lots.
And again, over time, these uses might get expanded, they may get retracted, and all those properties that are not part of a conditional district would be subject to those lists at that time.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Walsh?
But if the businesses lasted 5 years, 8 years, and they sold the property, then the new property owners would be subject to whatever the current zoning ordinances are.
Depending on what they are, they most likely would have to go through a change of use process. That could be as simple as a paper permit or complete site plans. Just depends on what's going on at that time.
And if something like a car place dealership, especially where they are, given the size of the lot, that still need NCDOT approval for, driveway permits and all that, which would probably be a little bit challenging given the size.
I agree, yes.
Okay, thanks.
But the other lots across the street with the precedents I mentioned earlier, those are bigger lots. So, okay. All right.
And those would need to come back in for either a conditional rezoning or a general rezoning. Again, it would be up to the vision of the board if they want to approve those or not.
But I believe our attorney said that whatever action we take tonight does not set, it doesn't set any legal precedent.
All right, this side of the room. Mayor Pro Tem Hunt?
I have a question for the applicants, if you don't mind. I would love to know what your operating hours would be for both businesses.
The bookstore probably close at 10 most days, maybe 9.
Dumpty Girls will be closed by 9.
Okay.
No big deal.
Okay.
I'm allowed to have a question for... No.
Maybe since you're both up here, you could just elaborate for everyone in here what your plans are for the sites.
For 117, I just want to open a bookstore with a cafe because bookstores, they struggle to make money on their own. So a cafe with beverages, light food, supplements that. I want it to survive, be successful. And if we're just relying on books, it's not going to happen. That's reality. So we can't compete with Amazon.
Okay, for Dumpty Girls, I'll be like restaurant and maybe a little gift shop with that together. And probably on the second floor, I probably gonna move upstairs there myself. So that is my plan.
Okay. And you wanted to have sit down and take out, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Bergsman, Quarles?
Well, question or two for staff first, and then we've got a question or two for the applicants. Brian, can you explain the differences between upzoning, downzoning, and rezoning?
Rezoning is just changing the category, so that's any process. Upzoning versus downzoning, if you look in our ordinance, we have a list of categories, and it starts with industrial and commercial down to residential. So on that chart, basically intensification of uses, those types of things. Anything that's more intense is considered an upzoning. Anything that's less intense is a downzoning. It's just in layman's terms.
Okay.
So would this be an intensification? Yes.
Okay, thanks, that helped. And actually, that's the only question I have for you. My other one was answered already. And then, yeah, for the two applicants. I was just curious if you have an identified timeline, if this were to be approved, of how you would be proceeding forward.
We'd probably go along the same timeline and try to build together. But I think almost immediately to start getting architectural and getting that process rolling.
Yeah, we were already kind of have a ASA,
Yeah, Henson Foley did a basic site plan for us, kind of sharing parking, but separate buildings. That's kind of the initial
now
thought.
try to have a better use of the land and have better parkings and landscaping, stuff like that, and less entrance, which is Gilead Road. It's very busy, so I think that one it's gonna limit it the entrance, which is probably is better for the town and everybody else there.
Yeah, a single entrance, and we're flexible. We're, we want our businesses to do well, and we want people to enjoy them. So we're not absolutist here. We're listening, but we need certain things for our businesses to succeed. And that's some flexibility to not get destroyed on the conditional zoning cost, and just some understanding from neighbors, quite frankly. None of the properties connected to our property have been occupied in years. They've all been vacant, none of them. No owner-occupied properties connect at all, period.
I just feel like from what I heard from today, it was like, even we do a conditional rezoning, I feel like there's always gonna be a problem. And I'm not gonna do conditional rezoning. If this denial, I would just keep a residential and just do as a resident, I have my rights. I respect my neighbors very much. And I want my neighbor to respect me too. And my food truck is not a diesel. And I drive everywhere. I don't think you're gonna smell my food truck. And also, right. So there's a lot of bigger trucks drive through. We are next to Gilead Road very closely. That truck makes more bad gas, bad smell than my truck, I think.
All right, thank
We
you.
are living in the town center, right?
Thank you.
So I just, we have to tolerate some noises, but I'm a very respectful person. I will always respect my neighbors, no matter what.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian, can I ask you a couple questions? I'm throwing these at you. I was thinking about this. What are the things that are prohibited to be built or ran adjacent to a school? Like I tried to find this online. I couldn't figure out if it was state ordinance or county ordinance or town.
Yeah, I'd have to look at some of the state ordinance. Our local ordinance, our zoning ordinance does not have any restrictions on schools or religious institutions. Sometimes you see alcohol sales, firearm sales, those types of things. None of that occurs in our ordinance. That would be subject to state rules.
Okay. And then if this were approved and then the text amendment were approved, that does that grandfather in those conditions that were, or those uses we're removing?
No.
Or they be prohibited moving forward?
It would, once the text amendment, once proposed, if it is approved, then those, from that moment forward, those uses would not be allowed. So one would have to do a text amendment to reintroduce those. Again, it would be at the grace of the board.
Board, any other questions? Okay. Do we have a motion to?
I make a motion to approve petition R2409, Town Center General Rezoning, a request by, hopefully I get this right, Durong Hong in Franklin Lowry to rezone approximately 1.089 acres located at 115 and 117 Gilead Road from Neighborhood Residential District to Town Center District. In considering the petition, it is consistent with policy LU 6.1, 6.2, EV 1.2, 2.2, 2.3 of the 2040 Community Plan and the gathering principle of the 2022 Downtown Master Plan. The Town Center District will be consistent with the character and uses adjacent to the subject properties and with the greater flexibility desired by the 2040 Community Plan. It is reasonable and in the public interest to approve this rezoning request to promote and encourage entrepreneurial business development, particularly small businesses, and to foster a dynamic and diverse business climate that realizes the vision of the 2040 Community Plan and 2022 Downtown Master Plan.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, Commissioner Quarles?
Good evening. I'm a supporter of general zoning, but this makes me think about my childhood days. We could sit in any room at the house with the exception of the living room, because my grandmother, she wouldn't play that. The living room had conditions. It was for special visitors. So we could have visitors at my home, absolutely, we could. My home was one of the most popular homes in the community. My friends would love to come by to play basketball in the backyard and to hang out. I personally feel that our downtown is our living room. We as elected officials, we have a fiduciary responsibility. In this matter, I believe that we should have conditions for our downtown. General zoning doesn't fully allow that. We should protect our downtown now and later. I'm hoping both applicants can set up shop here sometime soon, but sadly there are some unfortunates which aren't their fault. I know that every person sitting up here is in support of small businesses. We should not allow our personal feelings dictate our governing responsibilities. I'm asking those who may not be pleased with my vote to know that, again, I am for small businesses. Heck, I own and sold 4 of them. To me, it is the location of the zoning, not the general zoning itself. I don't think general zoning should be in our downtown, and for that reason, I will be voting no.
Commissioner Walsh?
I think the question tonight before this board is simply, will we support downtown revitalization or not? While we have all received lots of emails supporting this rezoning, some seem to feel there's a risk in not knowing all the details of what might go on these properties. I look at it from another perspective. Not approving this rezoning means we run the risk of snuffing out 2 small businesses that are trying to make downtown Huntersville their home.
Commissioner Dumas?
I mentioned some of my concerns earlier, and in previous meeting, I mentioned that I feel like it's important that we give the voices of the residents in the surrounding community a voice, and we've had several other really challenging applications come to our dais that we were able to negotiate and come up with solutions because it was conditional. It sounds like the applicants have already had a site plan, as you mentioned, and that you're working with an architect. I think that we would be able to look at the conditional rezoning application and find other things to waive that would make sense. I truly, truly believe we can find a fit for you here. And I worry, this is nothing personal. I don't believe general rezoning is the right approach for this downtown section. But I really, really hope we can find an opportunity. I'm going to be a no.
Commissioner Rivers?
Growing up here, seeing how Huntersville has grown is truly amazing. Losing some things like Cashins. Cashins is dear to my heart, but it's okay. But seeing the growth is amazing. Definitely am excited about what the revitalization of downtown will be. However, I just struggle with having the general rezoning in our downtown. I feel like we still need to ensure that it aligns with the vision for the town of Huntersville. I agree with Commissioner Dumas as well as Commissioner Quarles. You two, the two applicants, you have a great project, both of you. And I hope that we can find a fit for you. I just cannot agree with it being zoned in our downtown area. So I am a no today.
Commissioner Hunt?
So some of what I've heard for reasons to deny seem predicated on either these businesses failing or switching to something completely different. And we don't have any reason to believe that either of those things are true. In fact, we've received a lot of emails from residents encouraging us to approve this. So I think that bodes well for the business's success, that people want to come and patronize these businesses. Ms. Wong said she would move upstairs on the property because this is her dream. I wouldn't bet against her. I'm not going to get caught up in future tripping on what could happen on either of these sites. I think both of these businesses add value to our downtown, and I believe that they fit the vision. Dumpling Girls is already a successful and popular food truck. I think pretty much everybody up here has been there before, and it's amazing. She wants to set up a brick and mortar location. I think that's pretty clear what she's looking to do. Mr. Lowry has been clear about his intention to open a bookstore. He talked about author readings, workshops, food and beverage offerings, et cetera. Because it's a general rezoning, neither business will have ordinance modifications. So they have to follow all the ordinances in place in downtown, including nuisance and noise ordinances. Both of these align with the 2040 plan. It prioritizes local businesses and creates a vibrant downtown, making it a unique destination. People think that Birkdale is downtown, and this gives us an opportunity to add to the momentum of what is already happening here in downtown. So I unequivocally support this rezoning for these two small businesses.
And I don't have much to add to my comments from the last meeting, and I'm definitely not going to repeat them. I just wanted to add that in the in-between time, we received a lot of emails, and that was said. That includes emails from at least one or two individuals who were on the downtown steering committee who supported this application, as well as former planning board members who have expressed support for this application. So that is part of my decision-making as well. And personal feelings have been mentioned a little bit in this. I just want to say I've kept my personal feelings out of this decision, especially in regards to how I feel about general rezoning. I don't necessarily think it's a great tool anymore, but it is a tool that we currently have available as part of our rezonings, and I can't fault anyone who is going through legitimate channels using tools that we have. So.
All right, we'll have our vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Commissioner Bergsman, Commissioner Hunt, Commissioner Walsh. All those opposed, please raise your hand. Commissioner Quarles, Commissioner Dumas, Commissioner Rivers. So that leaves us with a tie, and that means that I break the tie. So this has been, as you can tell from the folks who spoke and the commissioners, has been a topic of much discussion, and the additional time that we asked for. I have gone back and forth many times on this subject in my head of what to do. I have finally landed on that I will approve this petition for this rezoning because it is consistent with our downtown plan and our 2040 plan, because of my longtime support and advocacy for small businesses. I do believe and have faith in the applicants that they will do what they say they're going to do. And so to that end, I approve this petition.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we have item 10B. Consider adopting a resolution.
Good evening, Commissioners. You have in your agenda package an offer to purchase 3 town-owned parcels. This offer to purchase was an unsolicited offer. In order to move forward with an unsolicited offer that is considered a negotiated offer, the town board will need to vote to move forward with advertising this offer for upset bids. And in the package, you will see the resolution details the formula for upsetting the bid. Essentially, it is 10% of the first $1,000 of the offer and an additional 5% of the remainder of the offer. If we do receive an upset bid, we will then have to open the period up again for an additional 10 days to receive additional bids. At this point in time, the current offer includes an offer price of $340,000. The acreage is approximately 1.68 acres. The offeror is offering to donate a portion of the purchased property for attainable housing units. The stipulations in the offer would be a minimum of 15 attainable housing units. This parcel to be developed for the units would be turned over by the purchaser to a nonprofit to develop said units. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time. I do want to point out that tonight you are not considering or approving a purchase agreement. You are merely approving the upset bid process. And again, that does require publication in a newspaper, and it offers others the opportunity to bid on the properties under these same terms.
Commissioners, do you have any questions? Okay, may I have a motion?
Just as a matter of clarification, I apologize. I should add that when we do publish this in the newspaper, we are going to include 3 separate legal descriptions for each of the 3 parcels, so it is very clear as to which parcels are included in the offer.
Okay, and now I have a motion.
I make a motion to adopt a resolution to authorize the notice and advertisement for upset bids for the sale of town-owned parcels consisting of approximately 1.68 acres.
May I have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously. We will begin with Commissioner Bergsman for closing comments.
I just have one, because I discovered this too late to get it in for announcements at the beginning, but I realized that on Sunday, January 26th, the Huntersville Police Department is participating in a polar plunge for the Special Olympics of North Carolina, and that is going to be held at the Lake House Wine Bar and Grill, 18665 Harborside Drive, Cornelius, and you can still register as a team or individuals. Hint, hint. So anyone who would like to participate in that and help raise funds for the Special Olympics, or would like to see any commissioners take a plunge, you know where to find us.
Commissioner Quarles?
Yes, I'd like to piggyback on what Commissioner Rivers said at the start of the meeting. We will be celebrating our inaugural Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebration at the Wayman Center on January 20th. We're going to start right at 3:00 p.m. It's going to be an exciting event, a lot planned. Just want to cordially invite you all to attend and ask you, would you please share this event with others? Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Hunt? Commissioner Dumas? Commissioner Walsh?
Just so you know, at this side, we're going to do the hot tub plunge. Just saying.
Commissioner Rivers?
Everybody wrap up. It's cold outside. Be safe, and just remember, if you're sick, stay home and rest. Thank you.
Amen to that. I just want to wish everyone in Huntersville a Happy New Year. I might be in for the polar plunge, and if I'm in, that means y'all are all in, including the mayor or the manager. Yes.
Anthony can fill in for me.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
I make the motion to adjourn.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.